Chapter 6. Decoy deployment on the cliff. Remaining in the chair, the six quietly conferred with each other. "This man taught a superior Neogong to our Jinger," Han Xiaoying said. "He can't possibly want to hurt him." "Then why doesn't he want us to know about it?" Quan Jinfa asked. "And why he doesn't tell to our Jinger that it's Neogong that has teaching him?" "I fear that is someone that we know," Zhu Chong said. "Someone we know?" Han Xiaoying wondered. "If it's not a friend, it can only be an enemy." "Amongst our friends," Quan Jinfa confirmed, "no one is kung fu this exceptional." "But if it is an enemy," Han Xiaoying pursued, "what reason would he have to teach our Jinger? Maybe there is a devilish plan behind it," Ke Zhen'er said in a cold voice. The others rose thinking about his words. "Tonight," Zhu Chong said, "Sixth brother and I will follow Jinger discreetly to see who the expert is." The five approved. That night, Zhu Chong and Quan Jinfa hid not far from Go Jing and his mother's chair. After a half-hour wait, they heard the young man say in a high voice, "I'm going, Mom." He left the chair, discreetly followed by his two masters, who were surprised at the speed of his leaving. Fortunately, there weren't many obstacles on the arid plain and they could see him from afar. Arriving at the bottom of the cliff, he climbed it without slowing down. By this time, Go Jing had made huge progress in his lightness technique. Since he climbed the cliff every evening, he didn't need the help of the Taoist anymore and went to the top very quickly. Zhu Chong and Quan Jinfa were more and more astonished and stood for a long time in silence until the other freaks arrived. Afraid of falling into the hands of enemies, they brought their weapons and their hidden projectiles. Zhu Chong explained that Go Jing was already up the cliff. Han Xiaoying raised her head and saw the summit of the cliff lost in the clouds and shivered. "We'll have a difficult time getting up there," she said. "Let's hide in the bushes," Ke Zhen'er said. "We'll wait for them to come down again." The other five agreed. Han Xiaoying thought about the night 10 years ago when they fought the twin killers of the dark winds. She and her six brothers hid, waiting for enemies. It was as cold a night like this one, and the wind cut to the bone. The lonely moon, the desolate hill, the swirling of sand, and the silence of the night only broken by some distant sounds. The only difference was that now she wouldn't see Zhang Asheng and his always smiling face. She felt sadness in her heart. The hours passed and they didn't notice any movement on the cliff. Day broke and there was still no trace of Go Jing or of his mysterious teacher. They tried looking up but couldn't see anything. "Sixth brother," Zhu Chong said, "let's see what's up there." "Will we be able to climb it?" Han Baoju asked. "I'm not sure. We'll only know after we try," Zhu Chong said. After running back to the chair, he returned bringing back 2 long ropes, 2 axes, and several big nails. Quan Jinfa and Zhu Chong attached themselves to each other with the rope and began the climb. They dug some holes and planted the nails in them in order to provide sure hand and footholds. Sweating, they finally arrived on the summit. Hardly had they put their feet on the top of the cliff when they exclaimed loudly and became pale with fear. Next to a big rock, they saw 9 white skulls perfectly stacked, 5 at the base, 3 in the middle and 1 on the top. It was identical to the arrangement once made by the twin killers of the dark winds. Examining the skulls, they saw that each also had the 5 holes in the forehead. The edges of the holes were very clean and without any breaks as if cut with a blade. Obviously, the power of the fingers of the killer had increased considerably when compared to the ones they had seen 10 years ago. With their hearts thumping like drums they cautiously examined the surroundings but saw nothing else unusual. Then they climbed down to tell the others what they had seen. Seeing the look on their faces, Han Baoju was worried. "It's my Chaofeng," Zhu Chong said. The other 4 froze. "And our Jinger?" Han Xiaoying asked. "They must have come down the other side," Quan Jinfa answered. Then he told them what they had seen. "Who would have guessed," Ke Zhen'er sighed, "that for 18 years, all of our efforts only served to feed a snake amongst us. Jinger is an honest, straightforward boy and good as gold. Han Xiaoying disagreed. He would never betray us. Honest and straightforward? Ke Zhener sneered. How could he learn those martial arts from that witch for 2 years and not tell us anything? Han Xiaoying stayed uneasily silent, not knowing what to say. Unless, Han Baoju said, a blind Mai Chaofeng wants to use Jinger to harm us? That's probably what she's planning, Zhu Chong confirmed. Even if Jinger has bad intentions, Han Xiaoying protested, he would never agree to betray us like that. Maybe, Quan Jinfa suggested, the witch hasn't decided when the moment to inform him has come. Okay, let's admit, Han Baoju said, that Jinger's lightness technique is good and he has a good basis in Niagong. But what of martial arts? He still is far behind us. Why didn't the witch teach him any techniques? The witch only uses him, Ke Zhener explained. She doesn't want to make him good. Didn't her husband die by Jinger's hand? That is it. That is it. Zhu Chong exclaimed. She wants us all to die by Jinger's hand, and then she will kill him. That way full vengeance will be gained. They all shivered, struck by the logic of this reasoning. Ke Zhener struck the ground with his staff and quietly said, let's go back and act as if we don't know anything. When Jinger arrives, we will eliminate him. Afterward, when the witch arrives to train him, we will take care of her. Even though she may have become stronger than before, she can't see anything. With the 6 of us together, we should be able to get rid of her once and for all. Eliminate Jinger. Han Xiaoying exclaimed, frightened. And what of the challenge we made with Q2G? Which is more important? Ke Zhener replied coldly, to keep our lives safe or to go to that challenge? All remained silent. No, Nan Ziren suddenly said. We can't do it. What can't we do? Asked Han Baoju. We can't eliminate him. Nan Ziren said, shaking his head. Han Baoju said, can't eliminate him? Nan Ziren nodded. I agree with the opinion of 4th brother, Han Xiaoying said. It's necessary to interrogate him in depth in order not to make an irreparable mistake. The problem is too serious, Quan Jinfa said. If we hesitate and show the slightest weakness and the benefits from that to secretly betray us, what will happen to us? If we don't make the right decision, Zhu Chong said, the consequences may be terrifying. Do not forget that our adversary is Mai Chaofeng. What do you think, 3rd brother? Ke Zhener asked. Han Baoju wasn't sure which way to decide, but he saw tears in the eyes of Han Xiaoying. She seemed so sad. I'll take 4th brother's side, then he said, I won't ever be able to kill Jinger. Thus, 3 freaks were of the opinion to use violence on Gojing. The other 3 wanted a more measured approach. If 5th brother was still among us, Zhu Chong sighed, it would be possible for him to break this deadlock. Hearing him mention Zhang Asheng, Han Xiaoying was heartbroken again. Holding back her tears, she quietly said, how could we not want to avenge our 5th brother? Let's obey our elder brother's wish. In that case, Ke Zhener said. Let's go back to the camp. Back in their chair, they stayed silent, the air of death surrounding them. Ke Zhener said. When he arrives, 2nd brother and 6th brother block his exit, I do it. That night, when Go Jing arrived at the summit of the cliff, the Taoist was already there. Seeing the young man, he spoke to him in a low voice and showed him something next to the big rock where they usually trained. Look! Go Jing approached and saw in the moonlight the pile of 9 skulls. He jumped back. The twin killers of the dark winds. He said with a trembling voice. Thief come again. You know of the twin killers of the dark winds? The Taoist asked. The young man told him of the terrifying fights that night, in the course of which his 5th Sfu lost his life. He also told of how he frantically struck out with his knife and killed Chen Xuanfeng. The visions of that night were so vivid in his mind that he could not stop himself from shivering. When he stabbed Copper Corpse, he was very young, but the terrifying images had been engraved deeply in his memory. Copper Corpse caused so much suffering, sighed the Taoist, yet he died by your hand. My Sfus often speak of the twin killers of the dark winds. My third Sfu and seventh Sfu say that Iron Corpse should be dead, but eldest Sfu always says, not for sure. Not for sure. For these 9 skulls to be here, Iron Corpse can't be dead. He shivered. Did you see my Chao Feng? He asked. I arrived here not long ago, the Taoist answered, and I immediately noticed this pile of skulls. Has Iron Corpse come here to take revenge on your Sfus and you? The eldest Sfu made her blind, Go Jing said. We are not afraid of her. The Taoist took a skull in his hand and carefully examined it. This person has a kung fu of terrifying power, he said while nodding his head. I fear that your 6 Sfus are not strong enough to face her. Even if I lend them some assistance, we still may not defeat her. He was so sure of what he was saying, that Go Jing was stunned. 10 years ago, he said, she was not blind and yet she did not succeed in defeating my 7 Sfus. Today, we are 8. Will you help us in this danger or not? I've thought about it for a little while, the Taoist answered after a moment of silence, but I don't understand how her fingers can be this powerful. As says the proverb, those that wish you well don't come to find you, those that come to find you don't wish you well. Since she dares to come to take revenge, she is very sure of her chances. What reason did she have for arranging the skulls here? Won't we be extra cautious after seeing them? I imagine that it must be a part of the ritual of practicing the 9 yin white bone claw. Because it is so difficult to climb, she must think that no one comes to the summit of this cliff. By sheer luck, we stumbled on it. Fearing that my Kaofeng might already be going to fight his masters, Go Jing said, I am going to warn my Sfus. Well thought, the Taoist approved. Tell them that you pass on a message from a good friend. They are to keep themselves aside for a while and take time to find the best solution. There's no reason to face her needlessly. Go Jing agreed. But at the very moment he was going to let himself slip down from the cliff, the Taoist grabbed him and jumped behind a large rock where they hid themselves. Go Jing was going to ask him what was going on when the Taoist put his hand over his mouth. He shrank against the rock, not daring to make a sound, only risking a quick look. A short time later, a shadow moved up the other side of the cliff. In the moonlight, long hair floated in the wind. It was my Kaofeng. The other side of the hill was even steeper than the cliff. Because she was blind, she probably wouldn't have noticed the difference. That was a stroke of luck, because the 6 freaks were hidden on this side. If she had come up here, she would not have failed to meet them, and they would be fighting already. My Kaofeng turned around suddenly. A frightened Go Jing lowered his head quickly. Then he remembered that she was blind, and he stood up slowly. He saw that she was sitting with her legs crossed on the big rock where he trained every day. Then she began breathing exercises. He now understood that this way of breathing and mastering the breath constituted the practice of the Niagong. He felt a sudden appreciation for the Taoist's teaching. A little later, he heard crackling coming from the body of my Kaofeng. At first occasional, then faster and faster, just like when one grills peanuts in a wok and they explode. The noise came from the inside of her body that remained immobile. Go Jing didn't know that it was a strange and superior form of the Niagong, but he was still very impressed. The crackling lasted for a long time. Then the rhythm slowed until it stopped completely. Go Jing saw her rise slowly. Her left hand took something from her waist that she swung like a long silver snake. Startled at first, he then saw that it was a very long whip. The golden dragon whip of his Sfuhan Baoju didn't exceed 6 feet, but this one had to be more than 20 feet long. She turned around slowly and the light of the moon illuminated a face that still was very pretty. With her long hair and her eyes closed, she seemed sinister and frightening. In the silence, one could hear her sigh and whisper, "My bastard husband, could it be that in the hell, you also think of me every day?" Holding her whip by its middle section, She quietly laughed and began to train. This whip seemed to dance in a curious way. The movements were slow and didn't make any noise. She made a stroke to the east, followed by an astounding one to the west. Every strike more unbelievable than the last. Suddenly her hand slipped and caught the end of the whip so that all of its length reached a big rock. It wrapped around and raised it as if it was a hand. Go Jing was stunned by this. The whip, after flinging the rock far away, moved back towards his head. In the moonlight, he could see distinctly that the end of the whip held about 10 very sharp hooks. Go Jing was already holding his knife. Seeing the whip coming his way, he was going to avoid the stroke, without even thinking about it. Then he felt his arm go numb and a hand pushed him to the ground. Like silvery lightning, the end of the whip passed above his head. Covered with a cold sweat, he thought, if my Taoist friend had not stopped me in time and my knife touched it, the whip would certainly have smashed my skull. Fortunately, the Taoist did it efficiently and quietly, and Mai Chao Feng didn't notice anything. She trained for a while, and then replaced the whip at her waist. From her bag, she took a piece of cloth or leather that she unfolded and spread on the ground. She touched its surface, thought, then stood up to sketch some movements. She knelt again to feel the thing and to think again. Finally, she put it back in the bag and went away to the other side of the hill. Go Jing sighed and stood up. "Well, follow her," the Taoist said in a low voice. "Let's see what mischievous plan she's preparing for us." He caught the young man by the belt and the two slowly slipped down from the hill. When they reached the bottom, they saw Mai Chao Feng already far away to the north. The Taoist put his arm around Go Jing, who immediately felt a lot lighter, and the two of them went at a great speed across the steppe, following Iron Corpse. As dawn began, they saw a camp of several score large gurs far away. Mai Chao Feng's shadow soon disappeared among them. They accelerated their pace, avoiding the sentries and patrols until they arrived at a big yellow gyre. Go Jing dropped to the ground and raised the flap of the gyre slightly to take a look inside. He saw a man draw his large knife and strike a huge man, who collapsed to the floor. As he fell, his face was in the field of vision of the Taoist and Go Jing. Go Jing recognized him. He was Temujin's personal bodyguard. He was stunned. How could it be that he came to be killed here? He wondered, raising the flap of the gyre a little more. At this moment, the murderer turned around and Go Jing recognized Sengam, the son of Ong Khan. Sengam wiped the blade on his shoe's sole and said, "Now you don't have any more doubts, do you?" "My brother Temujin is intelligent and courageous," answered a man. "This plan will not be easy to achieve." Go Jing recognized him. It was Jamuka, Temujin's sworn brother. "Since you like your sworn brother so much," Sengam sneered, "you could go and warn him." "You," Jamuka said, "are also my sworn brother. Your father has treated me with kindness, I won't betray you. Besides, Temujin has ambitions of absorbing my soldiers into his army, this I know very well. It is only because of our oath of brotherhood that I haven't broken our relationship yet." Could they be plotting against Temujin? Go Jing wondered. How is it possible? "The one that takes the initiative always has the advantage," another man said. "If you wait for him to attack you, you are lost. After the victory, all of Temujin's goods, his herds, his wives, and his treasures, will come to Sengam. His men, on the other hand, will be incorporated into Jamuka's army. Accomplish that, and you will receive the title of Conqueror General of the North from the Jin Empire." Go Jing could only see his back, so he crawled in a little further in order to see him better. He was clothed in a sumptuous yellow brocade tunic covered with sable. He knew the man, but he took a little time to remember his identity. Ah yes, as the sixth prince of the Jin Empire. Jamuka seemed convinced by his words. "If my adoptive father, Ong Khan, gives me the order," he said, "I will obey." "Since you put it like that," a very happy Sengam said, "if my father doesn't give the order, he will offend the Jin Empire. In a little while, I will ask him," he won't be able to refuse the sixth prince. Soon, Wan and Hongli continued, the soldiers of the empire are going to descend on the south to conquer the Song. At that time, each of you, at the head of 20,000 men, will be able to participate in the invasion. After the victory, others' rewards will await you. I've always heard, Sangam exclaimed joyfully, that the south was a marvelous world, paved with gold, and where all women look like flowers. If the sixth prince takes us along, it would be perfect. Nothing could be easier, Wan and Hongli said, smiling. I only fear that there might be too many beautiful women in the south and you won't see all of them. They exploded in laughter. Now, pursued the prince, tell me how you intend to take care of Temujin. In fact, I already asked him to help us to destroy the Song, but he refused. He's a clever man. We can't give him any reasons to doubt us. That is why we need to double our precautions. At that moment, Go Jing felt the Taoist pull him by the sleeve. He turned around and saw Mai Chaofeng a little way off. She had caught someone and seemed to question him. Whatever this witch's intentions, he thought, my swas aren't threatened for now. First I'm going to find out more about the plot against the Khan and then decide what to do. Then he turned again to the Jir. He promised his daughter to my son, Sangam said while looking at the body on the floor, and I sent an emissary to agree to the date of the marriage. I will ask him to come here to confer with my father. He will surely come without much of an escort. I will place some men in ambush along the way. Even if he had 3 heads and 6 arms, he won't escape alive. He exploded in laughter. Jamuka said, as soon as Temujin is eliminated, our armies will invade his camp. Go Jing was filled with anger and concern. How could the man's heart be so cruel, even to the point of plotting against his sworn brother? He was about to listen again, but the Taoist pulled him out by his waist. He moved back and was lightly touched by Mai Chaofeng, who was leaving very quickly, holding someone by the neck. The Taoist took Go Jing by the hand and the two moved away from the girls. She's trying to find out where your sfas are, the Taoist said in a low voice. We must go there immediately. Otherwise it will be too late. The two used their lightless technique and ran briskly. When they arrived at the Jir of the 6 freaks, it was already close to noon. The Taoist said, I didn't want to be seen, that is why I ordered you not say anything about me to your sfas. But now there is an emergency, and I cannot worry about such details any longer. Go to them and say that Mayu, of the Quanzhen Absolute Perfection sect, asks to see the 6 valiant heroes of Zhongnen. For 2 years, Go Jing had seen him every evening, but it was only at this moment that he learned his name. Without knowing who precisely this character Mayu, of the Quanzhen sect was, he obeyed and ran in the Jir shouting, Eldest Fu. As soon as he entered, his wrists were clutched brutally, and he felt a sharp pain in his knees that made him fall to the floor. He saw that it was his eldest Fu, Kazhener, who had knocked him down with his heavy iron staff. Completely terrified, he didn't even try to struggle or defend himself. He closed his eyes and waited for death. He heard the clank of 2 weapons clashing and then felt someone throw himself over him. He opened his eyes and saw his 7th Sfu, Han Zhaoying, protecting him with her body while shouting, Older brother, 1 moment please. Her sword, with which she had blocked the stroke, had flown away. Kazhener sighed, and thrust his staff down heavily on the floor. 7th sister has always had too tender a heart. Go Jing then realized that Zhu Chong and Quan Jinfa had seized his wrists. He didn't understand anything anymore. Where is the person who teaches you Niagong? Kazhener asked with severity. Him, Go Jing stammered. He is there outside, he asks to see you. Surprised at Mai Chaofeng's coming to find them in daylight, the 6 freaks hurried outside, weapons in hand. But all they saw was a white-haired Taoist, hands joined in salute. There was no Mai Chaofeng. Where is the witch Mai Chaofeng? Zhu Chong shouted, without releasing Go Jing's wrist. I first saw her last night, Go Jing answered. I fear that she may come soon. The six looked at Ma Yu with puzzlement. He advanced briskly and greeted them. For a long time, I've admired the six valiant heroes of Jiangnan. Today, I finally meet them. It is a huge honor for me. Zhu Chong, still holding Gojing, nodded his head in answer to the salute and said, "We don't dare to ask for the respected name of the Taoist master." Gojing remembered that he had not announced the visitor and hastened to say, "Has Ma Yu, of the Quanzhen sect." The six freaks were hugely surprised. They knew that Ma Yu, who had the nickname Scarlet Sun, was the first disciple of the founder of the Quanzhen sect, Wang Chongyang. After the death of the founder, Ma Yu became the elder master of the sect. Qu Chuji, Eternal Spring, was his younger martial brother. Since he usually lived a reclusive life in the temple, dedicating himself to meditation, he hardly ever set foot in the rivers and the lakes region. For this reason, his reputation in the world of the martial arts didn't equal Qu Chuji's. As for the power of his kung fu, no one had ever seen him in action and could not judge how strong he was. "We meet the elder master of the Quanzhen sect," Ke Zhener said. "We are much honored. What brings the Taoist master up into the steppe of the north? Does it relate to the competition in Jiaxing and our challenge with your martial brother? My impetuous younger brother, when he should be dedicating himself to the practice of the way, likes to duel with others. He often tries to win and impose his viewpoint. That is quite contrary to our principles. I've reprimanded him time and time again about this. I don't have any intentions of interfering in his bet with you, the six valiant heroes, since it doesn't have anything to do with me. 2 years ago, I met this child by chance. Finding him to have a pure and good heart, I took the liberty of teaching him some ritual formulae to fortify his body and to feed his character. This also has the virtue of encouraging longevity. It is true that I took this initiative without having asked for approval from the six valiant heroes beforehand. I hope they won't be angry because of it. I didn't teach him any martial techniques, and we don't have a master-disciple relationship. We could say that I merely made myself a young friend, and that we never broke any rules of the martial world." After saying this, he smiled warmly. The six were very surprised, and could only accept his explanation. Zhu Chong and Quan Jinfa then released Gojing's wrists. "So my pupil, a happy Han Zhaoying said, it was the senior Taoist who gave you some lessons? Why didn't you tell us about him earlier? We judged you wrongly." She tenderly patted him on the shoulder. Gojing stammered, "It was him who told me not to say anything."